It's good to be with all of you. Joe is exactly right when he talks about Logan County, what a neat place it is. It's the history here, the geography here, but most importantly, it's the people. And Polly and I count it a joy and a pleasure and a privilege to have the opportunity to serve you in Congress. It's an interesting time, to say the least. I had the opportunity last Tuesday, I guess. Last Tuesday, I had breakfast with Pat Caddell. I don't know if you ever watched Fox. He's the Democrat guy on there. He's fed up with the Democrat Party, like a lot of people are. And he made a line that, the Democrat Party is the corrupt party, and the Republican parties. He had some nice things to say about us too, which I won't say here. But he'd given a speech. Last November, and I happened to read the speech just because our staff had sent it to me. And he was one of the first sort of national talking heads, commentator guys who I think captured this dynamic we're seeing play out across the country in this kind of tumultuous political year we find ourselves in. And as we were talking last Tuesday, he used three numbers. He said 70, 60, 80. 70, 60, 80, Jim. He said 70% of Americans think the country's in decline. 60% of Americans think they're better off than their parents, but their kids are going to be worse off than them. And 80% think the game is rigged against regular, average, middle-class, small business owners, middle-class family. The game in Washington is rigged for the consultant political class and big corporations who hire the consultants and the political lobbyists, etc. 70, 68. Now think about that. When your country thinks when that's the majority of people think that's the dynamic and that's the feel and that's what's happening in the country, you're going to have a strange time. He actually said he thinks we're in one of those transformational times, that like the New Deal, like the Civil War, one of those times where politics changes in a dramatic fashion. And so within that context, I think it's important that we, as the party that represents the values and principles that I think made America great in the first place, we understand the phenomena that's going on, and we communicate in a clear and concise way common sense solutions for average families. I like what Dick Armey said a long time ago. He said, when we act like us, we win. When we act like them, we lose. I really think all we have to do is act like Republicans and offer common sense solutions. I'm going to talk about think about this. Polly and I were talking about this earlier. We're actually having a national debate about which restroom to use. Can you believe this? Think about all the big problems we got. How about this answer? Guys go to the guys' room, ladies go to the ladies' room, and let's talk about important things, right? So this is how ridiculous it's gotten, how the left throws all these stupid things in our face, and that becomes what we talk about and discuss, instead of things that are actually going to help middle-class families, help our country get back on the path it should be on. And always understand this. The world's safer and better when we lead. And if we're busy talking about things and focusing on things that don't really have that much significance, we can't lead like we need to around the world. I shared this story, and I may have shared it with some of you before, but I think it again captures the sentiment that exists today in America. And I just used two fictitious people, but this scenario I think could play out in any community across the country on any given workday. I want you to think about, I call it the second shift worker and the second grade teacher. Think about the second shift worker. Maybe he works at Honda or one of the suppliers for Honda right here in Logan County or Shelby County or right here in Ohio. And the second shift worker, now remember, when you work second shift, you miss half your kids' Little League games. Don't get to go to all your kids' after-school activities. But here's a guy who working hard for his family, busting his tail, doing what Americans have done for generations. He goes out to go to work, to get in his pickup truck to drive to work. And as he gets in his truck, he looks a couple houses down, and he happens to see a guy sitting on his front porch. And the second shift worker knows a guy sitting on the front porch can work but won't work and is getting his money. And so he gets in his truck, and he's thinking about the guy back on the porch. He gets in his truck, he turns the radio on. It happens to be the news hour. And the news report comes on, and the individual says, federal government's got a $19 trillion debt, and they also got this program that gives money to favored corporations. This one company went bankrupt, cost the taxpayers millions of dollars. And he hears all that, and he remembers the guy back on the front porch, and guess what? This guy's ticked off. And I would argue he has every right to be mad. Same time he's driving to work, there's a lady coming home from work. She's a second grade teacher at the local school. And she, like any good teacher, has busted her tail that day. She's like a missionary, like good teachers are. She cares passionately about her kids and helping her kids learn the things they need to learn to get on the path to achieving the American dream. She's worked hard. She's driving home. She has her radio on, happens to hear the same newscast where the same reporter says federal government's got a $19 trillion debt. They got this program that gives money to favorite corporations. Just one company went bankrupt, cost the taxpayers millions of dollars. She's listening to all that as she pulls into the driveway on her street and sees the same guy sitting on the front porch, drinking his coffee, reading the paper, and she knows he can work but won't work and is getting her money. And guess what? She's mad too. And she has every right to be. Those people, the second shift worker and the second grade teacher, are looking for a party to fight and represent them. And that's what we have to do. And it's not that we have to change anything, it's just we have to better communicate it and talk in a common sense way and focus on how we're going to help regular families achieve the American dream so that America can stay the greatest country in the world and the world can be a slightly safer and better place than it otherwise would be.